Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the class Buddhism 305, Buddhism in East Asia. But today is May 22nd, 2023, our 8th session, 8th week. So we finished our midterm and we are moving on. And so today we are going to pay our attention to Japanese Buddhism, Buddhism in Japan. We will be looking at, in next week, we will be looking at Buddhism in Korea. And after that, we will be having our, final. So let us focus on Japanese Buddhism today, Buddhism in Japan, okay? So as we have seen in our previous lectures, in Japanese Buddhism, or Buddhism in Japan is so important when you are studying about the East Asian Buddhist traditions. Japan is one of the biggest countries and very powerful, very rich culture with a lot of rituals. So in that sort of society, that sort of culture, how Buddhism got incorporated into that system and how Buddhism developed in that country is so important. So let us look at the introduction of Buddhism to Japan first. Japan received Buddhism officially from Korea. It is said that in the middle of the 6th century, roughly around 550 CE, they have two different dates, 532 and 554. So anyhow, let us take the rough idea that Buddhism was officially introduced to Japan through Korea in the middle of the 6th century. Then it is 100% correct, okay? In the middle of the 6th century. And it is a diplomatic mission. The Emperor of Korea, he sent a Buddha statue and some Buddhist flags, I mean, some sort of ritual flags, and or perhaps some texts too. And these items received by the Japanese emperor took them as precious things and got interested in the thing that he was introduced. So anyhow, after that, Buddhism became the belief, Buddhism included in the belief pattern of the elite. When I use the word elite, it means the higher classes of the society, royal class of the society. They accepted it as accessible or acceptable. You know, when a new or foreign thing comes to a new culture, existing culture, they are not ready to, if they are not ready to accept it, if they cannot incorporate it into their system, people reject it. That's how history is, you know, that's how things happen in the history. So in here, in Japan, when Buddhist beliefs and Buddhist culture was introduced into the Japanese culture, they were able to assimilate it, or they were able to incorporate it with their existing belief patterns. When I say existing belief pattern, it means the indigenous belief system that was existing in Japan. Usually, Japanese traditional or indigenous native belief system was called Shintoism, belief in the here and now. They were focusing on the life here, prosperous, successful life on this earth, because that is the life that we have right here, right now. But that is what is available right now. So they were focusing on that thing, how to achieve success in this life, how to be prosperous, how to be lucky in this life on earth. So when Buddhism came into their culture, that sort of culture, it's completed the other half. When I say that thing, it means when you are focusing only on this life, usually people have, humankind have the, what are we going to happen? What is going to happen to us after we die? That suspicion, that kind of curiosity is there, right? What are we going to do after death? What's going to happen to us? Buddhism brought the answer for this question. Buddhism talks about, samsara. This life cycle is never ending. You don't know the beginning, you don't know the end. After this life, you will be born again somewhere, depending on how you behaved in this life, right? So that completed the whole picture. The Japanese picture was missing some parts. So with the introduction of Buddhism, what happened was that became a complete whole picture, religious-wise, I mean. So that's why Japanese people were able to incorporate Buddhist system into their belief system and develop new traditions and new schools and they made new contributions to the Buddhist history. So after the 6th century, in the Japanese history, Buddhist influence is seen everywhere in their day-to-day life. At the beginning, it was the belief of the elite, belief of the royal family, but later in the 1100 or 1200, during that time, some Japanese were able to go to study Buddhism in China. So you see two types of influence: Korean influence as well as Chinese influence. Some important people went to China to study Buddhism, and when they returned home, when they returned to Japan, they started new schools and new traditions in Japan. That is how Buddhism evolved, developed in Japanese soil. Today you find many new schools in Japan. Very important thing you have to remember is when we do talk about Zen Buddhism, because Zen Buddhism is so popular all over the world now. In the Western world, it's kind of very popular thing. So that was started in Japan. Introduced the Buddhism introduced to Japan, and then they evolved. They developed that Zen Buddhist style, meditation, and as well as Zen practices in their day-to-day life. The tea ceremonies and Zen artwork and many other things. If you happen to visit Japan today, you can see how Buddhism is there in their life, day-to-day life, in their culture, in their thinking pattern, and in their any given aspect of Japanese life, you see the Buddhist mark. It is in there. So it's in their nature. I'm not just saying that Zen is the only thing. No. Japan developed many other schools, Rinzai, Pure you must have heard the word Amitabha, the Buddha Amitabha. Amitabha Buddha is the West, he lives in the Western paradise. And it is better for us to go after this life. If you can go to the Amitabha Buddha's realm, Amitabha Buddha's world, then you can reach your Satori, you can reach the final salvation over there. See the idea of next life. So to be able to be born in Amitabha Buddha's realm, to receive his blessing or to receive his salvific help, you have to pray to that Buddha. You have to pray to the Pure Land, Namo Amida Butsu. That is a mantra in Japanese culture, in that particular school, actually. So Pure Land culture. And also in Zen Buddhism, you find very important important teaching that instant enlightenment, quick enlightenment, Satori. Satori is the Nibbana or Nirvana, the salvation in Japanese culture. So you can attain Satori right away within a matter of like a jiffy. Or it's called sudden enlightenment. And there is another enlightenment which is called gradual enlightenment. You have to practice certain things for a long time, and gradually you will reach there, or you will attain the enlightenment suddenly. Very beautiful ideas. So these ideas were there in Buddhism, but they popularized it. Japanese people, they popularized this thinking pattern and made it a beautiful a logical system. So the many schools. Out of those schools, I just mentioned Chan or Zen. Again, Chan is started in China. So they popularized this as Zen, Japanese. And then Tiantai, many Japanese sects, Jodo Shinshu, Nichiren, like that, many schools of Buddhism evolved over the centuries. Even today, new religious movements are there, a lot of new religious movements. One of the things that come to my mind is Soka Gakkai. Soka Gakkai is a very powerful, very rich Buddhist new movement, new Buddhist movement. Even here you find in California University based on that sect, that tradition, Soka Gakkai University. In Tokyo, I have been there. So in Tokyo, there's a big their headquarters. That's a very rich tradition in Japan. That's a new religious tradition. It doesn't mean that they do have old traditions, Pure Land and many other traditional Buddhist centers, huge temples, beautiful temples, art and nature. Oh, it's really beautiful temples in Japan. In Kyoto, Nara, all these places. So that means it is active. And one of the important things that I would like to share with you, in Japan, Buddhism became, most of the other countries, you see Buddhism as a monastic tradition. Monastic in the sense that monks they do not get married. But Japanese people, they introduced the married monk concept. Monks, married monks. Quite interesting. That is how right now in Japan, mostly most sects accept that tradition. There are other traditions like Zen without getting married, and depending on their culture, they evolved these things. They made changes to their previously existing ones, and still Buddhism flourishes in Japan. So you have to do a little research now on Japanese schools of Buddhism and how Buddhism became so popular in Japan, what type of contributions that Japanese people made towards the development of Buddhism in the world history. If you want, when I say world history, means the Buddhist world. In the Buddhist world, what kind of role Japanese Buddhism plays, and how Japanese Buddhism incorporated the Japanese indigenous tradition like Shintoism, how Shintoism was able to incorporate Buddhism into their culture, traditional ancient gods, deities. In Japan, what happened was those traditional deities, traditional gods, they became Buddhist. They turned them to Buddhist. They converted them to Buddhists, and they even put new names to existing pattern. So that's how Japanese culture, and in their arts and in their poetry, in their writings, Buddhist ideas became so influential in forming them. In their day-to-day life also, you see Buddhism playing an important role in their day-to-day life. So that's, then their rituals. I said earlier too that it's rich in rituals. So in rituals, you see the Buddhist mark in Japanese Buddhism. So that's very important in that sense. And so that way, this is just an introduction to you, so you can do a little research on this and develop these ideas. I mean, widen your knowledge through the existing available sources. So do a little research and see. You may have interest to know about Zen Buddhism more, or you may have more interest to learn about Pure Land Buddhism, Amitabha concept, how it evolved in Japan, or you may have some interest to learn about the Japanese art and crafts and all those things, poetry, many avenues, So all these things are influenced by Buddhism. After the introduction of Buddhism to China, Chinese people were able to, change their thinking pattern. Their Japanese thought was highly influenced by Buddhism, and they developed it into according to their whims and fancies. Okay. So with that, I wind up the lecture today. And as I told you, please do a little research online and see how you can contribute to my lecture. Okay. That's what you should do. Don't just follow me. Just try to find out more. I'm just giving you the, the basic structure. Based on that structure, you can develop your understanding and, more things. Okay. Thank you so much. Let's see next week, and you will get the homework assignment in your email. Have a wonderful week.